Every Tuesday, we bring you chef secrets to help make your life in the kitchen just a bit easier and less stressful. Recently, we caught up with Chef Bill Collins. He joined us to share his secrets for properly freezing produce, meats, and dairy. Take a look.
We want to know, do you know the secrets behind properly freezing your food?
I sure don't.
You don't.
So I'm sure glad I'm here. Joining us to tell us how to properly freeze our food is Chef Bill. He's from chefbill.com, and you're sharing your chef secrets. I have to say that slow.
That's so hard to say quickly, sharing chef secrets, yes. Well, yes, I am, and today we're going to be talking about meats and other things. I've already got my gloves on for handling raw meat and chicken and things like that, but absolutely, because a couple of things is if you just take it in the original containers, which I have here, and you freeze it like that, it's going to be kind of, I think the culinary word is gross. Because,
really?
Yeah, because you've, because also, especially when you go to thaw it out, it just doesn't freeze as well. It's not perfectly sealed. It seems like it is.
And it gets that freezer burn, which is like a crust of ice and filth on there.
It is. It's not sealed enough. So here's the first step. Say you bring it home and you're not sure if you're going to freeze it or not, and you don't have a container to put it on, because the reason we know this isn't completely sealed is sometimes if you leave it in your fridge, some of the juices start to leak out and it gets all over the fridge. You kind of want to avoid that. So here's the other thing that I do. You know how when you get your produce in the supermarket, you have all these plastic bags, and I would bet 99.33% of the whole world just throws them out. Either recycle them or toss them out. I don't. I save them.
I save them too.
So
I'm in a small percentage.
That 0.668% of people. And here's what I do. I've got just the paper towel roll, and this is how I keep them. And this way you always have them when you need it, and instead of having all these bags all over the place. So if you're not going to be freezing it straight away, you're going to be using it later that night, put it in one of these plastic bags, just pop in the fridge. It's just going to be a couple of hours. That should keep it from leaking into your fridge.
That's great. And you know, a lot of times when I'm at the grocery store, the bagger will ask me, do you want this in plastic? You know, meat. And I say yes, and so then it's already ready to go.
It saves you that step.
Now, Chef Bill, general question. When you get home from the grocery store and you have the chicken and the meat, how long can it stay in your fridge before you need to cook it or throw it in the freezer?
The general rule of thumb for all cooked foods, and we're not talking about a tomato that you just bring home from the supermarket, but I should say all raw and cooked foods, meats, chickens, cheese, dairy, no more than 2 hours should it be out of the refrigerator. So that's a good rule of thumb. Even if you've got some soup that you've cooked, you know, no more than 2 hours before you cool it down. So that's the first rule of thumb. Now, you've got the meat here. Very often, as you see with drumsticks and beef, they're odd shapes. So they won't always fit in a container, but you don't want it in a super big container because it's going to take up extra room in your freezer. So what I like to do is I like to use plastic wrap, and for something like meat, I like to double wrap in the plastic wrap. Only reason is, it's not so much that I love using extra plastic wrap, but to really seal it up in the freezer, because you mentioned earlier, Seth, about freezer burn. And that's exactly what happens if it's not well wrapped in the freezer. You can certainly use a Ziploc bag. Ziploc bags are great, but you get that really nice, tight seal around it. And again, it takes up just a little bit less space.
So if you use plastic wrap, do you then not need a freezer bag? And will that do the trick in eliminating freezer burn?
As long as it's sealed up, yes.
Wow, that's a huge money saver because those bags get expensive.
Exactly. Now, what I sometimes do, especially this is all going to be sealed up, is sometimes I might throw it in afterwards just so it's easy to keep them together. Because here's the thing, if you have more than one steak, you might forget that you have a couple in there or however many. So this is another way to keep them together.
Right. So how would we wrap this up?
Very simply, is just break it through like that.
Oh, you actually take it out of the packaging.
Take it out of the packaging because, again, that can just be kind of gross, you know, when it comes to thought.
I'm learning a lot today, Chef Bill.
And also, it's not as well sealed. So all of it just might as well, since you're going to be tossing it away anyway, do that first.
Got it.
And then this is all sealed up.
So
and then
so we do it
once
twice,
more.
Though? Okay.
Might as well, because this way, you know, you've spent the money for it, and it just to make sure you do have that perfect seal on it.
That's the thing. So often people throw away this kind of stuff.
You see, here's the thing: is it's so simple. You run home, you get home, and things are all kind of mayhem is breaking out because you know the kids are hungry or you're running late.
There's food everywhere.
Just throw it in the freezer, and why wouldn't you do that? Well, this way, so just throw it in the fridge, and when you come across it a little while later, do these extra steps just to seal it up.
When you're about to seal chicken and meat, can you marinate it and then freeze it?
Yes, you can. However, I recommend not doing that because there's so many things can happen in doing that. The marinade can separate when you thaw it. I think you're going to be much more effective to thaw it, to marinate afterwards.
Okay.
However, sometimes time is of the essence, and you're doing it, and you know you're going to be thawing it out and running around like crazy leading up to, say, you're grilling. So that's one way of doing it.
How long will this last in the freezer?
They're going to give you 5 different answers because everybody has an answer. But you'll give it 3-4 months. Some people say 6 months. But and if you find that you forget about it or you can't get to it soon enough, if it's 6 or 8 months, it should be fine as long as it's well sealed up.
Okay.
And that's why you do it twice. And we just had a general guidelines on our screen. People can go to mymassappeal.com for that too.
Exactly. So now you've got the drumsticks, and what do you do with that? Now you can sit there and you can individually roll 6, 8, 9, 12 drumsticks, but you pretty much lose your mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why using a Ziploc bag is a good idea as well. So what I like to do, and again, take them out of the container.
Okay, I'm really glad that I'm learning this. This is going to change everything. I freeze everything. I have to get around to it later. So.
Well, especially being a busy mom, you don't always have the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Buy in bulk, and so especially if you're coming back from, say, BJ's Warehouse or Costco, you're going to have a big tray of these. You're not going to want to be wrapping these up individually.
Individually, no way.
So what I like to do is, especially when I'm handling meats, fold over the top of the bag so you're not getting the raw product all over, and pop them in. But now here's the part I really like, is if you were to just seal this up, and there's nothing wrong with just sealing it up like that, a couple things. You've got air in there, that's going to take up extra room in your freezer, and that's what helps bring around freezer burn. So try and get out as much air as possible. So I like to open up the bag a little bit, just kind of roll it up like that, and you've gotten pretty much most of the air out.
Like a sleeping bag.
Exactly, and voila.
For your drumsticks.
And you want all of the air out of your sleeping bag. That's an excellent idea.
Very good.
These are great tips. And a little bit later in the show, Bill, you're going to share even more common freezer mistakes that everybody makes, so stay tuned for that.
We are back with personal chef Bill Collins from chefbill.com. We're talking about common freezer mistakes. Now, I'm sure that almost everyone has made at least one of these mistakes. It's easy to do.
It's so easy to do. Yes, not only have I made those mistakes, every now and then I still do. Because it's so easy when you think you're pressed for time, I'll take care of this later, or I'll just put this in the freezer now and I know I'll come back to it. And about a nanosecond later, that thought is just completely out of your mind.
Yep.
Well, how do strawberries work? How can we freeze strawberries better than we currently do?
Well, one of the things is, looks like a regular strawberry, but
frozen strawberry.
It's a frozen strawberry. So what I did was, when you want to freeze strawberries, and strawberry season is just beginning here in the valley, and they're spectacular. We're having a great season already. So if you want to freeze them because, and enjoy them later on in the season, common sense would say to you, well, just throw them in a bag and freeze them. Well, if I were to freeze these in a bag and go to thaw them out, I would have one clump of mushy strawberry because they'd all be stuck together. What you want to do is either in a big sheet pan, or if you don't have enough room in your freezer, take a little disposable pan about this size, lay them out in a row, and freeze them.
And then put them in the bag.
Then put them in the bag, because once they're frozen, these are not going to stick together.
That's true.
So, so you can do it with strawberries, with berries, and things like that. So common sense, like I say, would just freeze it, and you'd be able to pluck them apart. There's too much water in here, that would just end up to be a mess. Or if you wanted just a few, you couldn't separate them.
What about herbs?
Wow.
Herbs. Here's the thing. Common sense says, well, I've got my bag from the market. I'm going to take the herbs, and I bought too many. I'm just going to freeze them. If you do that, you'll just end up with a mushy pile. What I recommend is chop them up. If you're just chopping up a few, chop them all up. Put them in a little plastic container or in a Ziploc bag, and this way you can actually just pull out what you need, because that is easy to separate, unlike strawberries or other berries.
And I always keep reading stuff too that people can, if you're making a pesto with this or something, put it in an ice cube tray.
Sure.
And then with a little bit of oil, and you've already got your dressing set for the next time you cook.
Yes, plus it'll make a really cool gin and tonic if you get your ice cubes mixed up.
Oh yeah, make it nice and fancy.
A pesto gin and tonic.
All right, tell us about what this cardboard box represents.
Well, what often happens is we take the regular containers that the foods come in, and especially if they're not wrapped separately, frozen foods, we just throw them back in the freezer. And very often, if it doesn't seal up, you get freezer burn almost immediately. Now, often if you go back to ice cream after a period of time, you'll see the little crystals on top. But of course, you're supposed to eat ice cream immediately. So if you forget that there's some in there and you go back, so there's not much you can do about that usually. But if it's a container like this, wrap them individually, or even just throw them in a Ziploc bag, and that will help prevent it. It's not a guarantee, but that's going to help prevent it.
Great.
Another thing is if you buy a product like cheese, say, well, listen, it's in a Ziploc bag, it's all sealed up. What often happens, especially if you've used some already, and you realize realize that you want to freeze it because there's more than you're going to be having straight away. These bags rip very easily, and so what you find happening is you think, well, this is a Ziploc type seal at the top, so this must actually be sealing it well. Not always. So just check out what this looks like. You might even want to wrap it in plastic wrap first, just to protect it, because all your good intentions can go down the drain when these get freezer burned and just end up killing the cheese.
Can you freeze cheese?
Yes, you can.
Who would have thought?
And
I didn't either. Nope, I
Yep.
didn't. I was going to ask that, actually.
And it's one of those things where you always end up eating it straight away, but you can freeze it. And so just about everything is freezable. The one thing I found that I have not been able to successfully freeze is cooked asparagus. And I had some left, oh, let me see, and it always ends up mushy and disgusting. So, which means you need to eat it all, especially now that, again, the Hadley asparagus is in season.
But that's easy to do.
Yeah.
So,
You know what? You have a new challenge going forward in the future, Bill.
Yep, well, freezing
To see
asparagus.
if you can freeze cooked asparagus.
I'm going to dedicate my life to it.
As well you should.
And I actually just want to mention one last quick thing.
Okay.
Is very often you have some leftover chicken, it's in the fridge, you wrap it in foil, oh, I don't want it to go bad, you throw it in the fridge like that. Everybody's done it.
The fridge or the freezer?
The freezer, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Afterwards you throw it in the freezer. And again, this isn't sealed up at all. This is just going to end up being a freezer-dried mess.
And it's going to be going in the trash.
So
can.
plastic wrap is the way to go for most
Plastic
things.
wrap or a Ziploc bag, just seal it up. Once you seal it up, you're going to be fine.
Chef Bill, as always, great tips.
Thank
No
you very much.
freezer burn in my house anymore.
Never again.
Thank
By
you
the
so
way,
much.
You can tune in next week for even more Chef Secrets with our friend Chef Bill. And for a copy of these tips, just head to mymassappeal.com a little bit later today.